Good evening. Welcome to Music Minute at 50 Lutheran Church in Richmond, Virginia. I'm Kevin Barger, the Director of Music Ministry here, and we're glad you joined us this evening to take a look into our online hymns tomorrow. We're going to start with Hark the Glad Sound, which also has the distinction of being the first actual hymn as you think of a hymn in our hymnal. The first 150 hymns actually have the Psalms, and then we have some service music that's in there, but for all of our other hymns actually start with 239, the beginning of the church year with Advent. And this text was written by Philip Doddridge, and it was about, he wrote about 400 hymns in a 5-year span, and what he did was he wrote them to go with his sermons. So he had one every week that went for this. In fact, this one was written for December 28th, 1735. So there you go. Went with his sermon that day. So it was kind of acted like the hymn of the day is what he did mostly. Notably, he was a friend of Isaac Watts, who was a prolific hymn writer that we've discussed before. He also had a rich family history in the church. Both grandfathers were involved with, one was a Lutheran pastor who came to England to escape persecution in Prague. And then the paternal grandfather was a nonconformist English clergy person who was ejected from his livings due to his failure to not subscribe to the Book of Common Prayer. So he does have some history there. He was one of 20 children, notably, but only he and his sister were the only two of those 20 that survived infancy. The tune is called Chesterfield, and contrary to what you might think, it is not named for the county just to our south. It also, interestingly enough, does have an alternate name, and that alternate name is Richmond. Again, nothing to do with Richmond, Virginia. Lord Chesterfield was what this was named for. That's where that comes from. And that rocket-like start that starts this hymn, bum, 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 is a great way to start the hymnal with our hymns, and it's a great way to start Music Minute tonight. So this will be on organ. Hark the Glad Sound. a little dance there. And we're going to switch to the piano for the other two. I guess I'll talk about it first. First will be Prepare the Royal Highway. And this again has lots of references to Isaiah 40. You might recall from last week we had Comfort, Comfort Now My People, which also had a lot of reference to Isaiah 40. This does as well. This came to us from Scandinavian country of Finland, I believe. So a nice contribution to our hymnody. The composer-author was originally a salesman and later ordained in 1803. And this typically, we would think of it as a very fun dance-like quality that kind of moves right along and you just want to leap off the page and dance. The version that I'm going to play on the piano today is more of a gospel blues arrangement. So it gives you a little time to focus on some of those nice chords, but it is not fast and speedy or dance-like unless you are doing some slow dancing. So here we're going to move over to the piano for Prepare the Royal Highway. So a very different arrangement of that, but fun. So we're going to move on now to our final hymn for tomorrow, which will be On Jordan's Bank, the Baptist Cry. And this is one I think I quizzed my choir the other night, and this is one of their favorites that came up in the list. The hymn was originally written in Latin, and the tune's earliest known source was actually a manuscript that they found in the 15th century that was an interpolation of an existing chant that existed out there. So that's an interesting history there. There are actually multiple versions of this. The one that we have in our hymnal, Evangelical Lutheran Worship, is the more jubilant version, sort of focusing on 3. There is a double version, which we are not doing, which is a little more serious and stately, perhaps. The tune was written by Michael Praetorius, and he was a son of a Lutheran pastor, and he was actually this pastor, his father, was a colleague of Martin Luther, so that's an interesting little tidbit there. Praetorius was only 50, maybe 49 when he died. There's some discrepancy on his birth date, but he was definitely a prolific composer in those 50 or 49 short years that he had with us. So this is an arrangement by Ann Krentz Organ, my friend and colleague, which is just wonderful, and the tempo marking is sprightly, so maybe this will be a little more dance-like than the last. So, On Jordan's Bank, the Baptist Cry. So you can dance right on down to the river. So that will be great. If you are joining us tomorrow, there are still spots available. Please sign up for in-person worship at 10 o'clock. And if you are online, it's on Facebook and YouTube at 10:30. The Music Minute Special Christmas edition, which will be all Christmas music without me talking, will not premiere until late Christmas Eve. So it will be available after all of the other services are done, and it will be out there and be available for you Christmas Eve late or Christmas Day. And hopefully that will be something that you can use in your families as part of your Christmas celebration. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.